All right, there are so many things to cover on the way into surgery. It's hard to even know where to start. A couple things to note at this point, though. Stage 1 bone cancer. We have that confirmed from the biopsy. And now there's a new mental shift that happens. At this point, it's been almost 3 weeks, and the surgery is not going to be for another week or a week and a half or so. And so I just kind of want to talk to a couple of the new mental shifts that happened as this was going on. I am still, yes, I feel better. I have stage 1 bone cancer. But at the same time, it still doesn't feel great. And so I'm still up every morning, still working out. I'm still trying to get all those positive endorphins going. Everything I need. I also want to be as physically fit and in good enough health so that when I go through the surgery and come out the backside, I have hopefully that much better of a recovery. Now, the other thing that happened at this point is now I know what it is. Now I just want to get it out. I just want it gone. And this was I don't know, maybe it's growing up military. Like, now we've got the intel. Okay, let's just nuke this thing. But one of the things that's worth mentioning here, and something that I haven't really talked about at all, is, speaking of nuking it, is why haven't I mentioned chemo? Where's the chemo in this whole thing, and what's going to happen with that? And there's a bunch of stuff that happens on the way to surgery, but it turns out, as I understand it, that with bone cancer, one of the reasons we are only talking about cutting it out, scooping it out, whatever we're doing, is because bone cancer doesn't respond to chemo. Apparently, again, as I understood it, not medical professional, as I understand it, it's too slow moving for chemo to be effective. Now, that doesn't mean that chemo is not on the table for some other things later, but we'll get to that. But that's why we can't just nuke it. So for nuking it at this point, what we got to do is we just got to cut it out. So I've got about a week and a half. I went ahead. We had another visit with the doctor, where it kind of a lot of my last minute questions get answered. I have never gone through major surgery, so a lot of all of this is totally new to me. Everything that's going to happen in the run up to it. Now, at the same time, I feel this just urge to get this gone and taken care of. There is a very real, like, COVID is, we're in the full swing of the first round of COVID. Everything's crazy, and I now also have this added thing where I don't want to get sick. We've scheduled my surgery. Everything is getting set up. Everybody's bringing in all the reinforcements, everything we need to get this going, and I don't want to get sick, which would then push this further out. And so I'm juggling trying not to get sick for COVID, doctor's appointments, going to see the doctor and things like that. And basically, what is going to, during our last visit with the doctor, as I was talking to him, he kind of explained what was going to happen. You go under, they basically cut off my arm, cut off the bone, open me up, cut off the bone, take out the cancer part, and then they have the person who does the biopsy, like a live biopsy right there. So what they'll do is, when they cut the bone, they're going to then take a sample from the remaining bone and make sure it's clear. And if it's clear, then they'll call that done, and they'll get the new bone. They'll get the new titanium arm in, and all that kind of stuff. Depending. Now, here's the trick. All of this, one of the things I mentioned was, like, you don't actually know what you're going to get when you go in there. And the reason being is, in order to get, of the options that I mentioned, the one that's a total reverse shoulder, which is, I guess, kind of the best range of motion version, that may not be an option, because what happens is, as I mentioned, they had to repurpose the axillary nerve, I believe it's called. And what happens is, if you look at it as they go in, if it's embedded in cancer, they can't reuse it. They can't so I wouldn't even, that wouldn't even be an option. So when I go into this surgery, the doctor explained to me, I'm not going to know what I wake up with. We're not going to know going in. Yes, you're getting a reverse shoulder. Yes, you're getting a plain shoulder. 95% chance I'm still waking up with my arm as it stands, but still in my mind, for fun, shark bait is still on the table. But it's largely because it depends on how bad the cancer is around that area. So he's explaining all this. We're going to do all these things, and then you'll probably be up and about the next day, walking around and stuff. I was like, okay, that's cool. And that's important later when we get to it. A couple other things that started happening at this point is I am getting all the life stuff together, right? I'm making sure wills are updated, trusts are created. The family has all my passwords to everything. I'm just trying to get all my ducks in a row. When this kind of thing hits, like the one thing in my mind that was, and it didn't help, but it was nice not to have to worry, is I had life insurance. And so it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it better, okay? But it was one less thing for me to worry about. And I wished that I had listened to Grandpa and had all of my wills and trusts and everything all set up so that I could, that would have been even one less thing to worry about going into this. So we're getting all that stuff together. And then at the same time, there's a whole slew of things that you have to do as you go into surgery. I need to, they give you a special kind of bath. It's like bacteria is a really big deal when you go into surgery. So as you're getting prepped to go in, you have to take a special kind of bacterial shower thing. And you do that like the night before and then the morning of, again, trying to reduce bacteria. The thing that snuck up on me that almost delayed the surgery that I didn't realize is it turns out some ridiculously high percentage of people have staph in their noses, in their nasal cavities. And so you have to go get this antibacterial goop that you have to jam up, put up your nose and try to get rid of the staph that's potentially just naturally present in your body, because they don't want that again in the surgery. And I didn't know that. I had to get to the pharmacy, and I potentially didn't have enough time to do that. So, again, paying attention to the time frames, that would have been something that was great to know. And then we finally come to the day of the surgery. Now, because of COVID, nobody could go in with me. I went in on my own, which was fine. I mean, I was gonna be knocked out anyways. But before we went in, we sat down with the family, and I was like, what would be fun for them to take part in the surgery? And so we got out a black Sharpie, and I let them write, a whole bunch of stuff on my body as I was going into the surgery. And one part of it was for them to kind of be able to go with me. But the other thing was, I was trying to figure out how to get a message to the people who were helping save my life. And I wasn't going to be awake. I wasn't even going to know who they were. And so you can see in the picture, I just thought I could write on me just a quick message. And that was a way for me to hopefully say to everybody who was there, who I didn't meet in person, who helped save my life, thank you. Now, I also came up with the idea that, because like I mentioned, you didn't know what you were going to wake up with. You didn't know if you're going to have a normal arm, a total reverse shoulder, or a shark bait. And so I came up with this idea where I put check boxes, and you can see them. I put check boxes on my arm so that when I woke up, it's not like I was going to be able to look inside my arm and know what it was. So that when I woke up, I'd be able to look down. And the reason the check boxes were on this arm, right? Because this was the arm that they were working on. And I would be able to look down and know right away what had happened, right? Obviously, if I didn't, if shark bait was a thing, you don't need to check the box. But it was still fun to have the box there. And hopefully it made people laugh in the surgery. But I had the normal and the reverse check box and stuff like that. And there's a couple fun stories that happened with that. my friend from university who helped me find this doctor, who is also an orthopedic surgeon, it felt pretty good later, because when I was telling him what I had done, he was like, "That's an awesome idea." And so, for example, he told me a story of a surgery he did afterwards on somebody who was also a doctor, and he knew that that person would wake up and want to know how it went. And so he channeled my checkbox thing, and he basically took an x-ray and taped it to the person's chest, so that then when they woke up, whether anybody was there or not, they would be able to kind of look at the x-ray and know how it went. And that all just came from, my little checkboxes. So that's my contribution to the medical world. But anyways, I thought that was kind of fun. Now, the part that wasn't so fun, that was a little bit more scary, was when we got there. I see the doctor, and they take my shirt off, and they're going through it, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Whoa," right? Because I had all this writing on me, and he made a comment, kind of made me a little nervous, but he's like, "Okay, usually we only mark up the arm that we're going to be working on, and so we need to make sure that nobody works on the arm that's marked up." even though it was written on there, don't touch this side, fix this side, whatever. Just the mental, like, we're used to cutting the arm that has the markings on. Here I had marked up the good arm. Gave me a little bit of pause that maybe my great idea wasn't so great at the time. But anyways, that was fun. A fun little kickoff to the surgery. The other fun kickoff was, you go in, you get all your stuff, you sit down, and they start getting you set up for your IVs. And the charge nurse came over to put my IV in. And I guess my veins are fun. First couple times she missed, couldn't get a proper IV hit. Finally, on the third time, she thinks she kind of got it, but wasn't totally sold. And I'm sitting here getting ready to go into a life-changing surgery, and we can't get an IV. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't totally, like, my confidence was not super high at this point. And so I remember just thinking, God, dude, I don't know if I trust this IV. Am I gonna get the drugs I need from this IV? She went away, and then the last nurse that came over before I was getting ready to go in, she kind of looked at the whole IV thing, and she's like, "What is this? We can't send you in like this." So for a fourth time, they stuck me again, and she was awesome. She nailed it. We got a good IV. I was able to finally take a deep breath going in, knowing that the IV was set up. Now, I know this seems like a small thing, okay? But this is like one of the last big things before I go into an already somewhat nerve-wracking adventure. And so having a 3 times miss on the IV before we finally get it was was a little bit of a punch. But it all ended up good. Thank you to the last nurse who actually nailed the IV spot on. I very much appreciate it. And then what happens is, you kind of wait there. You're sitting there waiting, and they start giving you the anesthesia and stuff like that. And you go rolling down the hallway, and then I don't remember much after that. One of the last things I do remember before I went out was they said that they were going to have to wake me up afterwards. So, well, I'll talk a little bit about the surgery itself in a second, but after the fact, after they finished, supposedly, they were going to wake me up before they put the nerve block in for the pain. Reason being is they needed to be able to confirm that I had feeling in my fingers still, that, all the nerve endings and everything were okay. And so I remember thinking, oh, well, that's going to be fun, waking up at the peak height of pain and then, letting them know if I could feel my fingers and stuff. So I went into surgery. Now, obviously, or thankfully, actually, no, there is one other thing that's worth. So you're going through all this anesthesia stuff. You have to sign all of these papers. And as you're reading through it, one of the things that you sign says, it is possible that you might wake up in the middle of surgery. And so even though they have to write this all down because, it just it's the legal aspect of it, but it did plant this thing in my mind of me waking up in the middle of surgery, how fun that's gonna be. But again, I reassured everything, like they basically, even if I did wake up, apparently I wouldn't necessarily remember it. And it's really just about the balance of, anesthesia and stuff like that. But, just lots of stuff to take in as you go into this. Ultimately, this is why I picked the team that I picked. Still doesn't mean it wasn't fun. Surgery was supposed to be about 4 hours. Obviously, I don't remember this much. And apparently my family was freaking out a little bit because I think I started at 12 and they were thinking I was going to be done by 4-ish or whatever. I don't think I finished till 8. As I understand after the fact, what had happened was after they made the initial cut of my humerus, they did the live biopsy there, and they weren't super happy with what they saw. And so they decided to take an extra centimeter off and redo it. And so it kind of took a little bit longer apparently than was expected. So, but ultimately, apparently, again, I think that went all right. I hope all the people who were helping me got the message that was written on my chest. Thank you, if not. And then I woke up that night sometime around, I want to say, it must have been 10 or 11, I'm not sure. And instantly freaked out because the nerve block was already in. I already had the pain pump and everything in. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to be able to tell them if I can feel my fingers or not. This isn't supposed to be here. And they're like, oh, honey, you already woke up. You've already told them. You already did the whole thing. So anesthesia good, right? Anesthesia good. So I then had the nerve block. And I'm imagining that helped block a lot of the pain, but there was still a fair bit of pain involved, quite a bit actually. And I looked down at my arm, and it said the checkbox for total reverse was checked. And so, right there at that moment, I knew that the surgery had gone, at least on the surface, without having a chance to talk to a doctor. I knew the surgery had been at least some percentage of the best case scenario I could hope for. Obviously, shark bait wasn't checked, and neither was normal. And as a fact that it was total reverse, I knew in my mind going in that the cancer wasn't that the axillary nerve wasn't embedded in cancer. They were able to repurpose it, and all those kinds of things. Obviously, I had the sling. And then I had a crazy little pump thing that was coming out of the wound to take off all of the extra fluids and everything that were part of the healing process, so that to help reduce swelling and everything like that. I had tons of stitches down my arm, which I couldn't see. It was all taped out, and that started the hospital fun. I think I was kind of, probably pretty darn groggy that first bit with the pain pump. And, throughout that was on a, let's see, I went in for, this is probably pretty key. I went in for my surgery on a Thursday. And then that first night, they came in throughout the night, obviously. Every morning at like 3 o'clock in the morning, you get this nice wake up call, and they stab you with a needle and steal some of your blood to make sure you're doing okay. So that's an awesome wake up call at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But again, still appreciate it. It's just not fun. So anyways, and what I found was, the hospital was amazing. Okay. So much different than a lot of the stories I had, and the one hospital visit I'd had as a kid. The metal trays with gelatinous jello or whatever the heck they would feed you and stuff like that back in the day. That's just not the way it was. The bed was amazingly comfortable. It could go into any position. They had these weird things on my legs to help keep your circulation going. They were basically like pressure pumps, that would kind of change the pressure. So I woke up with these leg wraps on. The bed itself constantly is kind of inflating and deflating to kind of move around so that you don't, so your blood doesn't like just sit, especially for when you can't move and things like that. The food was mind blowing, right? It was literally like takeout. There was a menu. You would just grab a menu, look at what you wanted, pick up the phone, and order what you wanted. I'm telling you all this because my hospital experience was amazing. I don't know why I wanted to leave so fast. In fact, that was probably one of my biggest mistakes. I think I tried to leave too fast. Speaking of which, what happened was, the very next day, just like the doctor said, what I found was laying down. I wasn't a fan. I needed to get up. I needed to get up and move about. And so, very quickly, that next morning, I was already up on my feet, forcing myself to walk. And basically, what I found personally was walking just kind of helped get my mind off of it. And so I would grab my little wheelie dealie with the fluids, and eventually I didn't even need the fluids, and I would basically do laps around the hospital. And the more I walked, the more my mind was just kind of off of it. But when I was laying down, I think the gravity was different or something with my arm from a pain standpoint. But one of the reasons I mentioned this is because this is where it was important, where the doctor was describing, he mentioned that I'd be up and about. So as I was doing my laps, I bumped into the doctor, and I was like, "Hey, doctor." And, we had a fun little chat, and and it went something like this. He said, or I said, "Okay, it's just like you said, man. I'm up and about. I'm walking around. I guess I'm ready to go home." And he looked at me and he was like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, you said I'd be up and about and walking around." And he just looked at me with this big old smile. He goes, "No." What he said was, very eloquently and doctorally that, I wasn't ready. But in my mind, what he said was, "Dude, we just cut your arm off, okay? You don't go home the next day after something like that." And so he basically said, "We're going to keep you for a little bit. You're not going home today." And whether I knew it or not, I didn't look. He basically said, "You don't look totally sure right now, right? You have a little bit of just, you're still in this." It was fair. But I just thought it was funny because in my mind, he's like, "Dude, there's no way you're going home the day after we cut your arm off." Which is, again, like I said, that was fair. And so I basically spent the next... So that was Friday that I thought I was potentially going home because, he mentioned it. And of course, that's a goal for me. I've got to get up and move around and get home the next day. So I spent Friday walking around. I spent Saturday walking around. And then on Sunday, we get to Sunday. Every morning I'm getting stabbed at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning taking blood. I think probably the biggest reason I wanted to get out of the hospital was I was tired of getting woken up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and them stealing my blood to check on me, right? I mean, to check on me, of course. But again, the only time I wasn't in super pain was when I was walking for some reason. And again, the best thing was like, the one thing was I didn't have any problem sleeping. Thanks to the bed, the infinite number of positions that it could go to in the hospital, I was able to find comfortable positions to actually sleep. And this was probably one of the mistakes I made. I was so gung-ho to get out of the hospital, to get home, that I probably could have spent another day or more in the hospital. Instead, I was just, setting goals. I don't know what I was doing. Anyways, Sunday rolls around, and they're like, "Okay, I guess we think you can go home." And I remember they brought in an occupational physical therapist. And I'm packing up my stuff. I still have the pain pump. One of the contingencies of me going home was The pain pump I was gonna have to take out myself, and then I also was still gonna have to do all of my own fluid work and everything like that to empty the fluids. And then the occupational physical therapist came in to make sure I could do things like get dressed and all that stuff. And you know, I'd been walking around the hospital for a couple of days now at this point, using the restroom on my own, all that kind of stuff. And one of the last things she said to me before I was getting ready to head out, that she's like, "Okay, you need to show me you can go to the bathroom." And I was like, "Wait, what now?" She was like, "Yeah, I need you to sit down and go to the bathroom for me." I was like, "No." I was like, "I know Kung Fu. I can Mabu all day. You trust me, I'm good." And she's looking at me like, "What?" She doesn't know what Mabu is. Mabu is horse dance, by the way. And the look on her face was awesome. She's like, "Okay, show me." So I basically dropped into Mabu, show her that I was good to go. And I was like, "Okay, fine. I'll show you I can do it, but we're keeping the lid down. I'm keeping my clothes on, and you'll be able to see that I'm in control and stuff like that." So I'm just sitting there doing Mabu, showing her, and she's like, "Okay." Anyways, packed up all of the rest of my stuff. Finally got the release. This was Sunday. I have all of the crazy good drugs. And you know, my family grabbed me and I went home. And home was tough, actually. It was really hard because I could not find a comfortable position in the bed to sleep, right? And I was in a lot of pain. I'm not gonna lie, I was in a lot of pain. So I was icing it. I was doing everything I could. I basically found that I was walking 3-ish plus times a day, 4 times a day. And so, you know, I started walking when I got home, and then that was Sunday. And then Monday rolled around and I went to work. Everybody at work was like, "What are you doing here?" And let's be fair. I want to be real about this, right? Yes, I went to work, but because of COVID, we were all work from home, and so, you know, I was able to log in, go to meetings, and actually do work. My entire team thinks I'm crazy. Actually, I think a lot of my friends think I'm crazy sometimes. But I was at work. I had just had an ice pack on. You know, I would just kind of change them out all throughout the day. And then I was walking to, you know, 1 to 2 miles, 2 to 3 times, 3-4 times a day. Because again, when I was walking, that felt best. So that kind of wraps up the whole adventure through surgery, how that all went, getting the arm taken care of, and things like that. For our next video, we'll talk a little bit about kind of some of the early stages of recovery before I kind of get into more of the longer term check-ins and things like that. But overall, at this point, we've cut out a good 17 centimeter chunk of my bone. Maybe you've seen the picture from the site. This is what my new arm looks like now. And what we're waiting for as part of the last bit of, you know, what is our status beyond just recovery, is they've taken that bone and it's been sent off for additional biopsy, where they're basically going to biopsy every section of that thing to figure out, you know, how bad it was in other sections that they couldn't see during the initial biopsy, so that can help guide future treatments or what we're looking for in the future looks like. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this section of, you know, It's Not Cancer Part 3, and we'll do some recovery updates and what the road looks like in future videos.